Welcome everyone to the fourth video in our series of short M-Files records management training sessions from Team IM. In this session, we're going to explore some advanced capabilities that are available in M-Files records management using AutoRecords. These features may be especially important for some organizations with complex retention and compliance requirements. The goal of this video is to provide an introduction to some of these capabilities. The documentation provides more detailed instructions, including working samples, to help better understand what's possible. In our last session, we explored some standard records management concepts. We built a file plan to represent the retention policies for the organization. Then we split up the file plan into two parts, where the first part represents the policy, and the second part represents the retention. Then we looked at how a row in that file plan is represented in M-Files with configurations. The event group template represents the pieces of data needed to schedule a retention event. The basic concept is that after some triggering criteria is met, in this case, immediately after the file is created, we wait some period of time, in this case 7 years, and perform some action. In this case, we delete and destroy the file. The policy is used to determine classes of documents to include. It also contains triggers or limiting criteria to filter within those classes. The policy will only include documents from classes specified with metadata that match the criteria in the trigger. In this case, financial documents with a document type equal to invoice. Finally, the policy also indicates what category of retention should be applied to these documents. In this case, delete 7 years after creation. The retention category is really the glue that holds everything together. It's used to specify which event or events are to be scheduled for documents with this retention category. In this case, a single event will be scheduled. With the ability to individually create, link, and reuse these three building blocks, records managers can quickly and easily build a comprehensive file plan that represents the true records management and compliance criteria for their organization. While the vast majority of records management scenarios are easily handled using these simple configurations, there may be some circumstances that require additional processes or configurations. In this video, we're going to provide an overview of how records management can be extended to handle challenges that may be unique to your organization. In this configuration, there's a single event that will get scheduled. We will simply delete the invoice after 7 years. However, there may be cases where more retention activities need to occur. Taking a closer look at the retention category, we can see how any number of events can be scheduled for a document with this retention category. Importantly, each event operates independently of the others. In this case, the document will be assigned for review in 1 year. Regardless of whether the review is complete, in 7 years the document will be deleted. Additionally, irrespective of both of those activities, access to the document will be restricted 10 days before it becomes obsolete. While these activities are scheduled independently, it's common for some of the events to work together to achieve a business objective. In this example, it may be that when the review of the document occurs in 1 year, at that time the reviewer sets the obsolete date. Once the obsolete date gets set, records management responds automatically and schedules an event to restrict access to the document 10 days before that date. It's also very common to have multiple events responding at different times to the same criteria. For example, we might delete 7 years after obsolete, assign for review 1 year after obsolete, and restrict access 10 days before obsolete. So all three events are triggered by the same obsolete date. Now that we have an idea of the flexibility of scheduling multiple events from a retention category, let's take a closer look at the event group template to reveal even more possibilities. As we look closer at the event group template, there are a couple of places here that allow us to build more complex retention processing as well. The action template specifies what action or actions we want to perform. Records management comes standard with common action templates that perform retention processing activities. We'll talk about how we can add our own in just a minute. But for now, we can see that performing multiple actions in the same event provides some enhanced capabilities. Perhaps we want to restrict access to the records managers and set the archive flag simultaneously. We're able to do this very easily with no workflow modifications or scripting. Likewise, if there's a situation where we need to perform multiple events in series and ensure one event is always scheduled before another, for each event group template, we can specify the next event to schedule. This provides the ability to easily chain many events together and again requires no workflow or scripting. While it's easy to configure records management without workflows and cover most scenarios, if there are cases within your organization where you need to do something unique because of your environment, such as delete a file and then delete some corresponding records in an ERP system, records management in mFiles has been designed from the ground up to leverage the power of mFiles workflows and easily extend processing to handle any situation. Returning to the idea of records management actions, in mFiles they're implemented in two ways to provide the maximum flexibility. Direct actions execute directly against a file. They take less time to process, which is useful in vaults that have millions of documents, but they cannot be customized. Standard actions use mFile's powerful workflow engine to perform processing. Importantly, these workflows are not document workflows. They are not specified on documents and don't disrupt existing business workflows. They are used behind the scenes by AutoRecords to do work against documents. Each records management action has been implemented as one of these simple one-step workflows. The workflows serve as a starting point and can be copied and customized to meet specific needs within the organization. In our example, we're going to delete some files and then remove corresponding records in the ERP system. To do this, we would make a copy of the current delete all revisions and destroy metadata workflow. Once we've done that, we're going to add whatever steps are required within our organization. The documentation goes over this process in more detail, but from a high level, the key thing to remember is that the architecture of mFiles and AutoRecords provide a robust platform that can be easily tailored to suit the retention and compliance needs of any organization. Most often, that's through simple configuration, but with the easy extensibility of custom workflows, there are no limits as to what's possible. While actions and events provide flexibility to perform retention tasks in many different ways, there's also great flexibility in the way we trigger those actions to run. In our example so far, we've used simple triggers that work on the creation date and document type. A trigger becomes valid when its conditions are true. In the case of the created trigger, as soon as the created date is less than or equal to the current date, the trigger is true. In effect, it's true as soon as the document is created. The trigger of document type equal to invoice is only valid for documents that have a document type of invoice. If a document type changes, the trigger will be reevaluated and respond to that change. These two simple triggers are all that we needed for our invoice example. And while these simple triggers work for a vast majority of cases, there may be situations that require retention actions to be executed based on some other criteria. Another way we can trigger retention actions to occur is based on a period of time added or subtracted to a date. So rather than just starting at the date the document was created, we may want to start retention 10 days after it was created. Records management in mFiles provides the ability to trigger retention by adding or subtracting from a date to deliver even more flexibility in determining when retention actions should be executed. Perhaps the most powerful way to trigger retention actions is by leveraging the mFiles relationships between objects. In this case, we've got a performance review document that is linked to Barbara Simmons. It's quite common to want to have retention on documents that is controlled from information on some other object in mFiles. We can trigger retention on the performance review indirectly from information on the employee. These are called indirect triggers. In this case, when the employment status changes to become a former employee, the trigger will become true. Importantly, it will only impact the document classes specified. If no document classes are specified, the trigger will apply to all documents that reference the employee. We can set up additional triggers on the status of former employee to handle additional document classes, so our retention actions are scheduled differently for different document classes. The result is that this allows us to set up fairly complex retention for employees and their documents. In this case, when an employee becomes a former employee, different actions happen to the documents related to them at different times. The first event template was schedule actions to delete all employee documents after 1 year. However, since we've also got event template that specifies HR documents on its trigger, records management in mFiles will recognize the HR document class and choose that indirect trigger to apply to the HR documents. Like HR documents, tax and insurance documents get their own retention of 10 years. Importantly, the event to remove tax and insurance documents is also configured to remove the employee object. The net effect of all of these configurations is that when an employee becomes a former employee, after 1 year, all documents that reference that employee except for HR, tax, and insurance are deleted. After 7 years, the HR documents are deleted, and after 10 years, the tax and insurance documents are deleted along with the employee object. The documentation and samples contain much more detail about indirect triggers and the flexibility that's available with these configurations. Beyond flexibility in configuration, Records Management in mFiles provides flexibility in processing. When managing retention, it's sometimes necessary to put items on hold due to audits, lawsuits, or several other situations. As with every other part of Records Management in mFiles, holds involve nothing more than creating a simple configuration. The hold name is a simple description of the hold. An extended description is available to provide additional information. The hold has a start date, which controls when Records Management begins honoring the hold. It also has an optional end date, which determines when Records Management stops honoring the hold. And finally, there is an owner who's responsible for the hold. Once created, holds can be applied to a single file or many files. A file can also have more than one hold assigned to it at one time. No records management processing will occur against the document until all holds have expired. Finally, in cases where records management audits occur and certificates of destruction are required, there are built-in features to report on all actions performed by the records management system. As we come to the end of this series of introductory videos on using mFiles for records management, we want to encourage you to reach out to Team IM or mFiles to request a demo and ask how records management in mFiles can help solve compliance and retention for your organization. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to helping your organization with its records management adventures.